Jacob lived alone in a quiet wooden cottage at the edge of the forest. It was evening, the sky was orange, and he had just made a cup of tea. The old radio played soft music while the wind moved gently through the trees. Everything felt peaceful then. The sky ripped open, a deafening roar shook the house like thunder, exploding inside his chest. The lights flickered, the radio died, and the air became hot like fire. Before Jacob could stand, a shadow passed over the cottage, and the roof tore apart like paper. Wooden beams flew in all directions, and fire rained down and sparked something that had crashed right through his ceiling. Smoke filled the room. Coughing, Jacob covered his mouth and stepped back. A glowing, strange-shaped pod was half buried in the floor. It hummed like a machine but looked alive, breathing in and out. The metal surface pulsed with blue lights. Then, with a soft hiss, the top of the pod opened. A girl stepped out. She was not human. Her skin was smooth and silver with soft glows under her skin like flowing light. Her eyes were big and purple with no whites at all. Her hair was silver white, floating gently as if underwater. She wore a torn battlesuit, half burned at the shoulders, and held something that looked like a small scanner. Jacob stood frozen. The alien girl blinked, scanned him with the device, and spoke in a clear voice. "You are the one. The beacon chose you. By law of the Veltari, you are now my husband." Jacob blinked once, then twice. "Wait, what?" The girl swayed. Her legs trembled and she fell forward. Jacob rushed and caught her before she hit the floor. Her body was cold but soft, and her breathing was fast. She was hurt. Okay, Jacob muttered, carrying her to his couch, which was now half covered in dust and broken wood. "I don't know who you are, but you're not dying on me." He pulled the old blanket over her and tried to understand what just happened. Was this a dream? Had he lost his mind? She had fallen from the sky, destroyed his roof, called him her husband, and passed out in his arms. What kind of weird sci-fi movie was this? Suddenly the pod made a soft beep and closed itself. The pieces folded and melted into the floor until only a glowing cube remained. It floated, then fell silent, stared at the alien girl sleeping on his couch. She was beautiful in a strange way, like a painting from another world. Even with the dirt and blood on her face, she looked peaceful. Now he reached for his phone to call someone, police, army, anybody, but there was no signal. Power was out. The house was shaking earlier, and probably the whole town heard the crash. He had to act fast. If someone else got here first, they might not treat her as a guest. The girl suddenly moved. Her eyes opened wide, glowing softly in the dark. She grabbed his wrist and whispered, "They're coming." Jacob leaned closer. "Who's coming?" She looked at the window with fear. "Hunters. They tracked my ship. I used a warp jump to escape. Then I landed here on your planet. They will not stop until I am taken or dead." Jacob's heart raced. "You brought enemies with you?" She sat up slowly. "I didn't mean to. I was trying to protect the galaxy. I stole something powerful from them, but now they want me on. Everyone who helps me destroyed." Jacob stood up and looked outside. The forest was silent but heavy, as if something dangerous was moving through the trees. He turned back to her. "You need help?" The girl touched her chest and a soft light glowed through her skin. "I am Zyra, daughter of the High House Veltari. I give you my vow. You saved me. You are my bonded one now. The ancient law makes it so." Jacob shook his head. "This is insane." Zyra smiled gently. "Insane, but true. And now they will come for you too. My husband." Just then, the ground shook again. A low, mechanical noise came from the forest. Red lights flashed between the trees. Jacob ran to the doors. Ira stood beside him, holding a strange weapon from a belt. The sky above them was no longer empty. The sun had not yet risen, but Jacob had been awake all night. His roof was gone. His world had changed, and now there was an alien girl sleeping on his couch who claimed to be his wife. But the strangest part hadn't happened yet. He was in the kitchen, quietly frying eggs on his small gas stove. He hoped food would help her recover. The house smelled of smoke and broken wood, but the sizzling of the pan brought a tiny comfort. Then he heard footsteps. Ira walked in slowly. Her skin glowed faintly in the dim morning light. Her silver hair hung down over her shoulders. She wore one of Jacob's oversized shirts now, and it hung loosely over her alien figure. Her eyes scanned the room like a soldier entering unknown territory. Jacob turned around and held out a plate with 2 eggs. "Here, you must be hungry." She looked at the plate and froze. Her pupils narrowed into slits. Her soft lips pulled back, showing sharp, perfect white fangs. Her breathing changed, and she took a step back like he had pointed a weapon at her. Jacob raised his hands. Hey, it's just eggs. You okay?" Zyra's voice was sharp. "Those are unfertilized life orbs. On my planet, we only eat those if we are starving in war. Giving them as food is an insult. Some species kill for less." Jacob blinked, slowly pulled the plate back and said, "Okay then, no eggs." "Got it." She relaxed a little, though her eyes stayed alert. "I forget how soft this world is. Your kind gives food that looks like death. Your floors don't shock intruders. You sleep with no field shields around your head." Jacob sighed. "That's called peace. Or maybe we're just behind the times." Zyra walked over and sat at the edge of the table. "I scanned you yesterday. Your genetic pattern was compatible. That's why the bond formed. The ancient laws do not ask permission, They respond to fate. Jacob sat across from her. So let me get this straight. You crashed into my house, scanned me, and now I'm legally your husband in some alien space law. She nodded. Yes, it is rare, but not impossible. He looked at her face. Her glowing eyes held no sign of joking. What does that mean for me? Do I owe someone money now? Or do I have to wear a crown and get hunted by space sharks? Zyra leaned forward. It means you are now part of my bloodline. You are protected by the laws of the Veltari, but also hunted by those who fear our rise. Jacob rubbed his forehead. This just keeps getting better. A soft beep interrupted them. Zyra turned her wrist and activated a small device. A blue hologram lit up, showing the area around the house. 3 red dots blinked on the edge of the forest. They found us. Jacob stood up. Who's they? She looked him straight in the eye. Trackers from the 5th Moon Syndicate, bounty hunters. Once they mark a bondmate, they never stop until it is broken. That means one of us must die. His blood ran cold. Zyra stood and pulled something from the floating cube in the next room. It unfolded into a sleek silver weapon shaped like a cross between a spear and a rifle. She handed him a glowing disc. What's this? He asked. A pulse shield. Press the center when you hear the first shot. It may save you or not. Your bones are soft. Don't try to be brave. Jacob looked at her. You're serious about this marriage thing, huh? She gave him a strange smile. You are now my mate. It's my duty to protect you. But if you die, my heart will burn for 7 years. That is tradition. That's actually kind of sweet and terrifying. Suddenly, the trees outside moved. A loud clicking noise echoed through the forest. Red eyes blinked in the shadows. The hunters were here. Zyra's hair began to lift, floating around her head. Her eyes glowed brighter. Stay behind me. Jacob grabbed the shield disc tight as opened the door. 3 tall creatures stepped out from the forest, wearing black armor with glowing red lines. They had long claws, breathing masks, and small blades spinning around their wrists. One of them growled, "Surrender the royal, or burn with her." Zyra stepped forward. This human is my chosen mate. If you touch him, I'll make sure none of you ever return to your masters. The air grew colder. Jacob watched her body shift. She was no longer just a glowing girl. She was a fighter. She was a warrior, and maybe, just maybe, she was serious about protecting her new husband. The fight was over in minutes. The ground outside Jacob's ruined house was scorched. The hunters lay broken in the dirt. One of them had tried to shoot Jacob, but Zyra moved faster than his eyes could follow. She took them down without mercy now. She was quiet. Jacob stood by the doorway, his hands shaking. Are they gone? Zyra nodded, kneeling beside one of the hunters. This squad was small. Just scouts. More will come. They always send more when they fail. Jacob stared at her, unsure what to say. Her silver hair was messy, and her arm bled from a deep gash, but she didn't flinch. She didn't complain. She looked like someone trained to fight since birth. She stood up slowly. Inside, we need to talk. Back in the house, Zyra walked over to the table and sat down. The air smelled of smoke and burned metal. Jacob followed, still holding the round shield disc she gave him earlier. I need answers, he said. Why me? Why did the scan pick me? And what do you mean contract by law? Zyra looked into his eyes, serious now. She reached for the collar of her shirt and pulled the fabric down over her shoulder. Jacob froze. Glowing blue lines pulsed just under her skin. They formed symbols, strange curved letters in a language he couldn't read. But one of the symbols looked like something he had seen before. It was his name written clearly in English. Jacob, what is that? He asked, voice low. This is the bond mark, Zyra replied. It appears only when the bloodline reacts. Your touch triggered it. The ship's scan confirmed it. The contract formed instantly. It wrote your name into my body. It cannot be erased. Jacob stepped back. You mean your skin tattooed itself? With my name? Zyra nodded. This is how our ancient laws seal a soul link. It is not just marriage. It is a joining of fate. If one dies, the other feels the pain for life. If one betrays, the bond punishes both. Jacob sat down, stunned. I didn't agree to anything, I know, she said calmly. But the laws are not made for comfort. They are made for survival. My people once ruled 10 systems. To keep the bloodline strong, we followed the scans. The bond chose who was worthy, not us. He looked at her again. So I'm your galactic husband, whether I like it or not. She nodded again. Yes, you are now protected, but also hunted. The enemies of my house will chase you to the edge of the galaxy if needed. Jacob laughed nervously. Great. That's just great. And what if I don't want this? What if I walk away? Zyra's face turned cold. If the bond breaks, I lose half my strength. My family will fall. You will be hunted and marked. And worst of all, the bond may punish your heart until it stops. I've seen it before. Jacob stared at the glowing letters on her skin. They pulsed like they were alive. Ira slowly pulled the shirt back over her shoulder. But I will not force you. If you truly wish to end the bond, there is a way. A planet called Velos holds the only soul-cutting priest left in this galaxy. He can sever it, but his price is not easy. What's the price? Jacob asked. Zyra hesitated. He asks for memories. He will take your best one, your most powerful, forever. Jacob felt a strange ache in his chest. A moment of silence passed between them, then he said, maybe. Maybe we see how this goes before cutting anything." Zyra looked surprised, then gave a soft smile. "You are braver than you look." Suddenly, a light flashed from the floating cube near the wall. Zyra stood and walked over. She touched the surface, and a voice came from the device warning. "Tracker fleet detected. Arrival in this system estimated in 7 hours." Jacob stood up fast. 7 hours, that's it. Zyra didn't panic. "Then we must move now. I can't defend this house again. The next squad will have heavier weapons. We need to leave Earth." Jacob frowned. "How you crashed here? Your ship is broken." Zyra looked back at him and held up her hand. "The ship is bonded to my blood. As long as I live, it can rebuild itself." What? She walked outside to the crashed pod still buried under his floor. She whispered in her language. The cube began to hum. Light pulsed out in waves before Jacob's eyes. The cube expanded and unfolded. Parts lifted from the ground, floating into place. In seconds, the ship began rebuilding itself like magic. Zyra turned to him. "It is time, husband. Come with me or stay and face what comes alone." Jacob looked at the ship, glowing like a living creature. His world had already changed. Now it was about to become much bigger. The house was shaking again, but this time it wasn't because something crashed, it was because something was rising. Jacob stood frozen as Zyra's ship rebuilt itself piece by piece. Silver plates floated up, locking into shape like a living puzzle. Sharp blue lights glowed along the body of the ship, and a humming sound filled the air. In less than 2 minutes, a sleek silver vessel hovered silently in the air above the ruins of his cottage. The ship looked alive. Ruins of his cottage. Their ship. Her hair floated slightly again, as if touched by invisible wind. "We must leave now. If we stay, the trackers will surround this place, and they do not care who gets hurt." Jacob looked at the place he had called home. The wooden fence, the old tree, the cracked garden path. All of it now buried under pieces. Of his broken roof there was nothing left to protect. "I'm coming," he said. Zyra reached out her hand. As soon as his fingers touched hers, a platform slid open from the ship. A soft blue staircase formed in the air. They stepped inside, and the door sealed behind them with a gentle sound. The inside of the ship was clean and quiet. Soft white light lit the curved walls. The floor was smooth but warm under his feet. Screens floated in the air, showing star maps and energy levels. A central chair sat in the middle, wrapped in glowing threads like a throne of light. Zyra touched the center console. Voice lock. Zyra Veltari confirmed. Ship control released. Entering escape sequence. A soft voice from the ship replied. Bonded pilot recognized. Emergency liftoff initiated. Jacob felt a sudden weight in his chest as the ship rose fast, shooting into the sky. He fell into a nearby seat as Earth dropped away behind them. Clouds passed like streaks. Then came darkness. Then came the stars. He had never been in space before, never left his town, never even rode on an airplane. Now he was orbiting Earth in an alien ship. Jacob looked out the window. The blue curve of the planet glowed below. Tiny lights marked the cities. His old life, his old world, was shrinking behind him. Zyra stood at the control panel, calm and focused. "They'll follow. But we have time to reach the jump gate." "Jump gate?" Jacob asked. Zyra pointed at the map. "There is a hidden gate on the far side of your moon. It connects to the outer systems. If we reach it before the fleet, we'll lose them in deep space." Jacob leaned forward. "And if we don't?" She looked at him without blinking. "Then we die together." Jacob sat back and muttered. No pressure at all. The ship suddenly beeped. Enemy signal detected. Tracking beams activated. Incoming fire in 60 seconds. Zyra's fingers flew across the console. Hold on. The ship rolled to the side. A flash of red light shot past them, just missing the hole. Jacob grabbed the sides of his chair as the ship spun and sped forward like a bullet behind them. 3 dark ships were closing. Zyra turned the ship into a narrow asteroid field. Sharp rocks floated in slow motion, spinning in all directions. Jacob shouted, "We're flying into that." Zyra smiled, eyes glowing brighter. "They won't follow. Their ships are too big. Ours is bonded to me. It moves as I move. Trust me." The ship danced between the rocks like it had wings. Jacob watched with wide eyes as they zipped past razor-sharp cliffs and spinning stones. One of the chasing ships clipped an asteroid and exploded in fire. Another crashed and shattered against a spinning wall of rock. Only one enemy ship remained. Now Zyra hit a green button. Jump core charging. 10 seconds. Jacob stared at the countdown. "You sure this thing won't rip me apart?" Zyra reached over and grabbed his hand. "It will be loud. It will feel like your bones are turning to fire, but you'll survive. You are my mate. You are stronger than you know." The countdown hit 0. The stars outside stretched like lines. The ship shook hard. Jacob felt his chest press tight. Light exploded around them. Then it was silent. There were gone. No stars, no sound. Just a soft blue tunnel of shifting light outside the window. They were between systems. Now Zyra relaxed her grip. "We made it. The gate worked. They cannot follow us." "Here." Jacob looked at her, still shaking. "I just left everything I know for a girl who fell through my roof and called me her husband." She looked at him gently. "You didn't just leave your world. You entered mine." Jacob looked back out at the glowing tunnel. "So where are we going now?" Zyra walked over and placed her hand on the console of the stars outside. Began to change again to the planet where my people live, she said softly. Where the high house waits, where your name is already written into the stars. The sky was gold, not blue, like earth, not black, like space. It shimmered like a glowing curtain above the clouds as Zyra's ship descended into the capital city of her homeworld. Tall towers floated in the sky. Bridges of light stretched between islands that hovered without support. Strange birds flew in rings, their wings flashing green and white. Jacob sat stiff in his seat. He had survived bounty hunters, a jump through space, and a ship made of living metal. But this meeting her parents felt like the most dangerous mission of all. Zyra walked over and helped him fix his collar. Try to stay silent unless spoken to. Don't touch anything without asking. And whatever happens, do not bow. Only slaves bow in Veltari tradition. Jacob gave a nervous laugh. You sure this is a good idea? Zyra looked at him with calm eyes. They need to see you. The bond is written in my skin. They cannot deny it, but they will test you. They always test outsiders. The ship landed on a wide platform made of glowing silver stone. Alien guards with long spears and glowing masks stood in rows. As Jacob stepped out with Zyra, all eyes locked on him. Whispers echoed across the landing. Zona Terran, that's the bonded one. He looks soft. Zyra walked proudly at his side, her hand resting lightly on his arm. She did not smile. She did not blink. She looked like royalty. They entered a massive hall where light moved along the walls like flowing water. At the far end sat two towering figures on crystal thrones. One was a woman with sharp features and golden armor. Her eyes were pure white, glowing like twin stars. The other was a man with a thick silver beard, wearing a cloak made of what looked like wind. They were Zyra's parents. High Lady Arathia. Lord Chancellor Vakazira bowed her head only slightly. I returned home under bond. The name has appeared. The contract is sealed. The room fell silent. The High Lady stood. You bring a Terran here. You bind your soul to dirt blood. Zyra didn't move. He saved me. He did not ask for the bond, but it chose him. You know the law. The Lord Chancellor stepped down from his throne. He moved slowly, but with power in each step. He stopped in front of Jacob. He looked him up and down, then raised his hand up. Glowing blade appeared in his palm. Jacob's breath caught. The Lord spoke. Prove your worth. Survive the trial of the Thornbeast. Only then will I allow this bond to continue. Zyra stepped forward. He is not trained for that. The High Lady raised her hand. If the bond is true, the beast will not harm him. If it is false, he dies. That is the way of our blood. Before Jacob could ask what a thorn beast was, the guards grabbed him by the arms. He was pulled through a side doors. I shouted after him, do not run, do not show fear. I will find you. After the doors slammed shut behind him, he was inside a dark arena. The ground was dry and cracked. Bones were scattered around. The air smelled like metal and dust. A deep growl echoed from the shadows. Then it stepped out. The creature was twice his size, with thick armor plates and sharp vines growing from its back. Its eyes were red and glowing. It moved on 4 legs, but its head looked too smart for an animal. Jaguba backed up. The beast charged. He dove to the side, rolled and grabbed a long bone from the ground. It was heavy and sharp. He held it like a spear. The creature turned and leaped again. This time Jacob didn't run. He threw the bonnet, hit the beast in the eye. The monster roared and smashed into a pillar. Dust filled the air. Jacob jumped behind a rock and grabbed a metal chain from the dirt. He waited. The beast circled. Then Jacob moved. He wrapped the chain around the creature's front leg as it passed. It tripped, slammed into the ground, and stayed still. Guards rushed in. Zyra appeared through the dust and ran to him. Was covered in cuts, but he was alive. The Lord Chancellor stood above the arena. He nodded once. The High Lady whispered, he bleeds like a soldier, but loves like a fool. Zyra held Jacob close and said, that fool is my bonded one. Asterisk. The stars watched from above, million of them blinking across the endless black sky, but none of them could see what Jacob was about to face. He had survived the thorn beast, but that was just the first test. Now Zyra's people wanted something more. They wanted to see if he was worthy of her land. The galaxy was watching. Jacob stood at the edge of a wide stone platform. Floating cameras buzzed around him, sending his face across star systems. Alien species from 5 planets tuned in to see the human who had bonded with a royal. Across from him stood his opponent, tall muscular Veltari warrior with fire-colored armor and long knives curved like fangs. His name was Keldorant. He was Zyra's former suitor. He was promised her hand before you ever existed. Zyra had whispered in his ear that morning, he wants you broken. He wants me to forget you. You cannot let him win. Jacob had only nodded. His hands still hurt from the beast fight. His legs ached, but something deep inside had changed. He was no longer afraid. Loud gong echoed across the arena. The warrior charged. Jacob moved to the side. The blade missed by inches. He dropped low and grabbed a small energy shield from the ground, deflecting the next blow. The crowd gasped as sparks flew across the stone. Kelder smiled. You are slower than I expected, Earthman. Jacob didn't reply. He kept his breath calm, his feet moving. He remembered what Zyra told him, don't match strength, use unpredictability. Humans weren't stronger than Veltari, but they were clever. Calder came again. Jacob rolled, kicked the warrior's knee, and used the rebound to grab one of the dropped weapons. It hummed in his grip, light forming along the blade. The warrior laughed. "This weapon is bonded to my blood. You think you can steal it?" Jacob didn't answer. He didn't need to. He just moved. Step twist, strike. The blade cut across the warrior's armor, leaving a mark. Keldor growled and swung hard, forcing Jacob back near the edge of the platform. One wrong step and he'd fall into the energy pit below. Sierra stood among the watching royals. Her fists were tight, her lips pressed together. She couldn't help him now. This was his battle. One strike hit Jacob's side. Pain exploded across his ribs. He stumbled. Blood touched the floor. The cameras zoomed in. The crowd went silent. Keldor raised both blades for the final blow, but Jacob stepped forward instead of back. He took the hit on the shield and rammed his shoulder into Keldor's chest, knocking the warrior off balance. Before he could recover, Jacob flipped him over his hip and slammed him into the stone. A crack echoed across the arena. Keldor didn't rise. The crowd stared in silence. Then one voice shouted, "Victory!" The arena lit up in golden light. Zyra ran down the steps. Jacob knelt, breathing hard, sweat and blood mixing on his skin. His hand still gripped the glowing blade, now pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeats. Ira dropped beside him. "You did it," he smiled weakly. "I just didn't want to die," she laughed, her voice soft and full of something deeper, pride maybe. Love. The High Lady stood and spoke loud enough for all to hear. "The human has won the right of standing. Let his name be added to the stars. Let him be marked as one of us." Jacob blinked through the pain. "Wait, they accept me now?" Zyra nodded. "You are now blood, not just to me but to my people. You carry our mark. You are Veltari." A bright light circled him. The blade in his hand melted into sparks and sank into his skin, forming a small glowing mark on his chest. It was the crest of her family. His chest burned, but he didn't scream. He just looked at her and saw her eyes fill with tears, not from fear, not from pain, but from something he didn't expect. Hopta. Stars that once watched in silence now knew his name, and those that once doubted him now stood in awe. He was just a human, but now he had become more. He had fought for her and won the right to stand by her side. The stars no longer whispered his name. They shouted it across glowing screens in royal cities and underground rebel strongholds. The human's face appeared. The one who survived the beast. The one who beat the Veltari champion. The one who now wore the mark of House Veltari on his chest. Jacob never asked for fame, but now the galaxy had chosen him as a symbol, and symbols are either raised up or hunted down. Inside Zyra's ship, now upgraded with royal tech, Jacob sat by the window watching planets pass in silence. Zyra stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes sharp as ever. She had just come from a secret council meeting with her mother. "They want us to hide," she said, voice low. Jacob turned. "Because of me, because of what you represent," she replied. "You are a human, not bred for war, not born into bloodlines, but you passed every trial. You bonded with royal blood and didn't break. The old lords feared that truth. If one outsider can rise, others will follow." Jacob let out a slow breath. "So they'll try to erase me?" Zyra nodded. "Or use you. Both are dangerous." A message alert flashed across the air in front of them. Zyra touched the hologram. A figure appeared, tall, thin, with long purple robes. His face was hidden behind a glowing mask. Jacob leaned forward. "Who is that?" "The Emperor of the Outer Reach," she answered. "He rules 5 systems beyond the Star Wall. He believes only pure bloodlines should rule. He sees our bond as a threat to his power." The message played human. The Emperor's voice echoed cold and sharp. "You stand where you do not belong. Surrender the Veltari girl and return to your world, or you will burn alongside her." The message ended. Silence filled the ship. Job stood slowly. "So he wants you gone? Or me dead? Or both?" Zyra looked at him. "What do you want to do?" He walked to the center of the ship, where the royal map glowed with all the connected worlds. He touched the red star blinking on the edge of the galaxy. "What's this place?" "Navara Prime," she said. "Neutral zone. No ruler, no warships, just voices. It is where leaders meet in peace talks." Jacob turned to her. "Then we go there. We tell our story. Show them what happened. If the galaxy wants to judge us, they should hear from us first." Zyra studied his face. "You'd stand in front of all those Sith." "Not alone," Jacob said. "With you, and not for power, but for truth." She smiled slowly. "Then let the galaxy see what love looks like." The ship jumped through the stars. 3 days later, they landed on Navara Prime. The city was built in rings, each made of floating stone, circling a massive golden tree in the center. Delegates from 100 worlds sat in rows, dressed in every color Jacob could imagine. Some had wings, some had scales, some floated instead of walked, and all of them were watching him. Zyra stood proudly at his side in royal robes. The High Lady spoke first. "This is Jacob of Terra, a human, a commoner, yet he passed every trial. He bears the bond of House Velt." "Speak now." Human Jacob stepped forward. His voice was steady. "I didn't choose to be part of your galaxy. I didn't ask for a glowing wife or space monsters or war, but I stood by her. I bled for her, and I proved something you all forgot." Looked at the rows of silent faces. "Courage does not care about blood. Love does not bow to rank. And strength is not in power, it's in sacrifice. Whispers filled the air. The Emperor stood from his seat. He raised her hands. Ira reached for her blade, but Jacob placed his hand on hers. The Emperor lowered his hand. He sat again. No words, just silence. Then a small alien girl in the back row stood. She clapped. Then another. Then the whole ring shook with applause. I turned to Jacob, her voice full of something soft and strong. They may never love you, but they cannot ignore you. Now he took her hand, and with all the stars watching, Jacob of Earth, man who once lived in a wooden cottage, became something more, not a king, not a god, but a husband of the galaxy.